The New Testament gives some clearly inconsistent accounts regarding what happened to Jesus' follower Judas after he betrayed Jesus. For those who don't know the story, Judas was one of Jesus' 12 apostles who betrayed Jesus by identifying him to his enemies. The authorities in Jerusalem sought to have Jesus arrested, so they got Judas to point Jesus out to the soldiers ordered to apprehend him. Sometime later, Judas dies. There are multiple accounts in the New Testament of his betrayal of Jesus and his death that are impossible to reconcile with one another without a lot of the hermeneutic contortionism that apologists love so much. It's not entirely clear why Judas betrayed Jesus. As Bart Ehrman says in his book Jesus Interrupted, there is no reason given in Mark, although we are told he received money for the act, so maybe it was out of greed. Matthew states explicitly that Judas did it for the money. Luke, on the other hand, indicates that Judas did it because Satan entered into him. In other words, the devil made him do it. In John, Judas is himself called a devil, and so presumably he betrayed his master because he had an evil streak. Things get really weird when we look at the descriptions of how Judas later dies. Ehrman says, Acts gives an account of what happened to Judas after the betrayal, as does the Gospel of Matthew. But it is striking that the two accounts stand directly at odds with each other on a number of points. The commonly held view that Judas went out and hanged himself comes from Matthew. After Judas sees that his betrayal has led to Jesus' conviction, he feels remorse and tries to return his pay of 30 pieces of silver to the Jewish chief priests, telling them that he has sinned by betraying innocent blood. They refuse to accept the money, however, so he throws it down in the temple and goes and hangs himself. The chief priests then collect the money, but decide that they cannot put it back into the temple treasure because it is blood money, money that has been tainted with innocent blood. So they decide to put it to good use and purchase a potter's field, presumably a field from which potters took clay, as a place to bury foreigners who died in Jerusalem. It is because it was purchased with Judas's blood money, we are told, that the place has been called the Field of Blood to this day. The story in the book of Acts is quite different. In Acts, we are told that Judas himself, not the Jewish priests, purchased the field with the reward of his wickedness, the money he earned for his betrayal. And it is not said that he hanged himself. Instead, we learn that he fell headlong and burst open in the middle so that his bowels gushed out. It's not clear to me why falling on your head would cause your abdomen to explode and your guts to fly out all over the place, but you know, lots of weird shit happens in the Bible. Also, which is it? Did Judas hang himself, or did he fall on his head and explode for no reason? Some apologists say that he hanged himself, and after his body rotted for a while, he fell out of the noose, and that's when his partially decayed body burst open onto the field. But the book of Acts says that he fell head first. If he was hanging by the neck, how the fuck did he fall head first? That doesn't make any fucking sense. Another speculation Ehrman cites is that maybe he hanged himself and that didn't work, so he climbed onto a high rock and did a swan dive onto the field below. And who was it who bought the field? Did Judas buy it, or did the priests buy it? Apologists have a clever bit of nonsense they use to explain this away. Some speculate that the priests bought the field, but because they bought it with the money paid to Judas, that counts as Judas having bought it. That is some epic fucking sophistry right there. If the truth is that the priests bought it with Judas's money, why would anyone write that Judas bought it? Why write it in such a needlessly confusing way? This is another example in which apologists, instead of coming to terms with the fact that the Bible contains contradictions, would prefer to believe that the divinely inspired, perfect word of their God was written by someone with the communication skills of a lead-poisoned gerbil's corpse. Thanks again for helping me out on Patreon.